If you're serious about getting better at bass, you need a structured bass practice routine. What it will do is focus you and get rid of self-doubt, frustration, and the lack of coherence that comes when you don't really know what you're doing. So this is a bit of a heavy talking bass lesson, but in it, I'm going to discuss how to formulate a game plan around your bass playing, how to know what material to practice, then how to split up your practice session, how to track it, which really helps in progress, and some ways you can think about this that are going to make it easier for you to set up a practice routine and stick to it. I asked a few subscribers about their problems when it comes to practice, and I'm going to go through a few of them later. But one of them writes this, which I think sums it up perfectly. For me, it would be how to organize everything. I practice every day, but I don't really have a stable plan or things to follow, and I often get lost during my practice thinking of what I should learn and what I should practice. Now, we're all guilty of that, just aimlessly playing. That's not really going to get you anywhere. Let's dive straight in. Throughout this lesson, do feel free to discard any ideas that don't resonate with you and take the ones that do. So we're going to start out with writing out a game plan. This really provides clarity and really allows you to know exactly what it is you want from bass. So I like to use a physical notebook for this and literally write down goals. What are your goals? What songs do you want to be able to play? What styles of music? What areas of music and bass do you want to improve in and be really good at? Do you want to join a band? Just jot down all of these ideas here. Be realistic about roughly where you are now and write down where you want to be, preferably within some kind of a time frame. Do you want to join a band? Do you just want to be in your bedroom and play confidently? Do you want to know how to play in different styles? You need to know this to know where to focus, which areas are going to help you get to those goals. By far the most important thing is just carving out some regular time. How much time? How much do you practice? Well, look, everyone's different. We've all got different commitments in life, jobs, kids, what have you. Now, what is the best practice routine? The best one, I've said it before, say it again. The best practice routine is the one you stick to. I'm just going to play a bit and explain something to you. Go into this a bit more later, but I like to think about bass playing, good bass playing, through the lens of a few different topics like technique, timing or groove, theory knowledge, fretboard knowledge is really important as well. Even what I was just playing there, let's just break that down a little bit. I find that this helps me focus the different areas that I need to focus on in bass playing, and also teaching helps me with that. So what I was just playing, I'm using fingerstyle. There are a few ghost notes, that's that, hammer-ons. This is technique. My technique needs to be good enough so that I can go to different parts of the fretboard, and that's one of the other topics. Fretboard knowledge needs to be good enough so I can express myself across this whole entire instrument freely. That also links, all these things link together very tightly, links to theory. So what I was doing there was playing an E minor pentatonic scale mostly, and occasionally putting this note in, which turns it into a blues scale. I'm not sure I did it this time, but that also fits into what I was jamming to in E Dorian mode. All of that is music theory stuff. I need to know that. So if I can combine some decent technique, phrasing, timing, and theory knowledge, and a good working knowledge of this fretboard, then I'm starting to think about these different elements of bass playing, put them together, and that's how I'm going to advance as a bass player. I think the same could be true for you too. I've listened to loads of stuff like that, so that's repertoire. That's another big part of learning the bass. Just getting a load of songs, bass lines together that you want to play in the style that you want to play. That's probably the number one thing that's going to make you a better bass player, is learning from the greats. Now I'm going to show you 4 examples that some of my subscribers put forward, for struggles they're having with practice. I've read all of them, by the way, thanks if you commented. I'll be looking through them for future lessons as well. It's fascinating reading these questions because the answers to everyone's problems are within the questions, so you need to be aware of that. So I'm going to go through them, and this is going to inform, this is the kind of thought process I might use in terms of what do I need to practice to address these problems. So look, number 1, after practicing something like arpeggios, how would you apply it harmonically? Okay, that's quite a big subject, arpeggios for bass players, but just, I would think about this. Look, C major scale. If you don't know, an arpeggio is just when you get the first, third, fifth, and seventh. We'll do a seventh arpeggio, that's what that is. Play those notes of the scale and you get an arpeggio. Okay? If I play all the notes of C major, I can play an arpeggio based off every degree of that scale. I'll do that now. So I get a set of 7 different arpeggios. That last one was the same as the beginning. So let's say that's a brilliant exercise. I'll link to it right here if you want to have a go at that. It's a brilliant exercise, but how? The question is, how would you apply it harmonically? I guess musically, how would you use this? There are a number of different ways you can do this, but just off the top of my head, let's get the first, which is the C major 7, and the fourth, which is the F major 7. Let's get that drum beat back. That starts to answer the question. Music theory, as in arpeggios and keys and how all these things relate, is a means to an end. We need to make music from it. This is something I love to do in my lessons, is to make music with this stuff. So I suggest you have a think about how you might do that yourself. You would learn an exercise like that, then extract some of the arpeggios and make music from them. I'll do one more. Out of these arpeggios, there's a D minor and an E minor 7. Actually, I'll just do that. So that would be the 2 and the 3. I mean, I could go on all lesson just talking about the harmonic sort of language of this major scale, and you could go for hours doing this. But in the interests of respecting your time, I'm going to move on to another question, which was just a whole problem of improvising solos. That's what he wanted to do. I want to improvise solos, don't really know how to approach that. So, well, the question here is, what actually happens in solos? So if you listen to, let's keep it to bass solos, what is a bass player doing? Well, again, it's that technique thing. It's all over the fretboard, and it's playing scales and arpeggios and modes and all that kind of stuff. If you learn those basics, I don't care what style of music you want to play, I don't care if you want to just stay in the bedroom playing or be a professional musician, you need a handle on these things. Once you understand them, you'll hear them. Then, when you hear your favorite bass solo, you can break it down. And, you know, just one thing that you might want to learn if you're looking to do solos is how chords fit together with scales and modes. So, for example, let's do... I've got a backing track, actually. I almost forgot, but I have got a backing track that's in sort of a B minor blues type thing. Let's listen to it. And so on. So that's in a blues style, a slow blues style. So I need to understand the key. I need to understand the tempo, the groove, all of that stuff. So that's in the key of B minor. And since it's blues, a B minor blues scale is going to work. The overall key of this particular example I'm giving you is B minor. B natural minor works. So just to zero in on this particular example, do you know B minor, B natural minor, and B minor pentatonic and B minor blues? By the way, this is a minor pentatonic scale. Just adding one note in turns it into a blues scale. So those two are easy. But do you know that in different positions on the fretboard? If not, that goes down into your practice diary, and that is something that you need to learn. Because it's all very well knowing it here. You could do a lot of cool stuff just there, but you need freedom to go everywhere on the bass. So that's what I was talking about before. Fretboard knowledge, opening this thing up to be, from there to there, not just this one little area that you might know. So we're starting to clarify our thinking here. It's to do with chords, going with scales, and knowing that. That's a bit of music theory knowledge. And then it's listening to the great players, and in this case, I've listened to a lot of blues guitarists. I love the way they play. And emulating that, and that's a lot of hard work, but it's really fun, just transcribing and listening to players. All the answers to your questions are going to be within their playing, right? So you listen to stuff you like. By learning those elements, the scales and the arpeggios, you will hear those in the solos, and everything will start to make sense the more you do it. So scales matched to chords, and that's just harmony. That's fascinating for solos. Couple more quickly. So one was how to integrate reading and theory study time into practice or into a regular day. I'll get into splitting up practice sessions in a minute. But, if you want to read, then you need material that is preferably no tab. So if you've got any tab, cover it up, get some masking tape or something. Or a book like Standing in the Shadows of Motown, which I've had for 30 years? Yeah, I've had this book for nearly 30 years. It's got no tab in it. It's just a fantastic thing to do. And I was reading a lot when I was younger anyway, and so that's the greatest practice with reading, is actually in an ensemble. But do you know what the notes mean? Do you know what a repeat marking is? What a second time ending is? Coda, all that stuff? If not, well, you have to study it for a bit. That could be part of your practice session if you want to read music. And then once you've got all that together, it's a question of getting some easy stuff and building up slowly from there. Talking of slowly, ironically, the last example I'll give you is this one, which is building speed with my right hand fingers. Basically, I'd like to be able to play like Steve Harris or Robert Trujillo. Not just for metal, but to do runs and fills in any genre. Well, look, that's a huge one for a lot of bass players, is to be able to play fast. And linking it to what I was just saying, weirdly enough, to play fast, you have to be able to play slow first. Let's take that same B minor scale. Now, just quickly, as you well know, even if you just look at my channel, I've got hundreds of videos. Add the other amazing bass channels out there. There are thousands of videos. And that's what freaks a lot of people out, too much information. Just whittle it down. You can either get one of my lessons or someone else's lessons, or preferably you learn how to do this yourself. Look, there's one scale, one octave. Talking about fingers. Alternate the fingers, going index, middle, and I'm going 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, holding the bass properly. I'm focusing on mechanics. I'm not holding the bass here at all. It's not going anywhere. If you want to put a strap on the bass, do so. But what you want to do is start from a slow pace. You can get a drum loop or a metronome when you're ready. But you need to play slower perfectly. I think many people ignore the foundations in terms of knowledge, but also technique. So really slow it down. It's a bit boring to do that actually, but you have to be conscientious and do that. You can start to get faster when the mechanics are there. I feel that I'm not warmed up enough to be playing really, really fast, so that's warming up. We'll look at that in a second. I'm going to go into something else that's important, and that's splitting up your practice time. This is from that course. It's a sample 30-minute practice session. You can adapt this any way you like. You can discard things, you can ignore, you could bring your own things in, whatever. But I'll just quickly go through this. So if you look down the left, we've got those different elements. Technique, theory, timing, very important parts of being a musician. Fretboard knowledge, reading. I like to read music. I think it's a great thing. It's not essential, but there it is. Songs, learning songs. You just can't go wrong learning as many bass lines as possible. And mindset is just the way you approach all of this, your commitment, how serious you are. So very quickly here, play the harmonized scale example on page 27. Well, I believe it's that one. That learning how to harmonize a major scale And then you can work on your technique and accuracy whilst doing it. You know, 2, 1, 4, 3. Can I do that whilst alternating my fingers here? I'm working on technique, but I'm also working on the knowledge, theory knowledge, and the fretboard knowledge. I'm killing a few birds with one stone. Perhaps I will start off with that as a warm-up, but also learning this theory stuff. Then I might try to make some music from that, maybe integrate a drum beat or something like that, and yeah. Just improvising, having a bit of fun with it. I've got under fretboard knowledge, learn the funk formula pattern. Well, that's this. Root 5 flat 7 octave. Used in hundreds, probably thousands of bass lines. Works over minor chords and dominant 7th chords. That's a good thing to know. So fretboard knowledge encompasses knowing all the notes, knowing all the scales, triads, arpeggios in different keys, off different fingers, knowing your intervals, patterns. You know, patterns on bass is just genius. So I like to do loads of work on that because it makes bass playing easier for me. Reading, okay, so if you did want to learn how to read, well, let's spend 5 minutes out of a 30-minute practice session just studying the notes. Now, what's the note on that second space there? And testing yourself on this kind of thing. If you don't know it well, you have to do it every day. For me personally, I would probably spend, at this point in my bass playing career, I would spend the most time on this, learning songs, learning bass lines, you know, to play in bands and to play sessions and to play actual music that I like. So that's, you know, pop, rock, funk, jazz, you know, covers I used to play in a lot of covers bands. I'd be learning loads of that. If you're in a band, then you probably would spend more time doing that. Lastly there, I've put mindset about logging your practice, and that's this next section I'm going to talk about. And there was a great question that someone asked, and that's, well, how do you know you're getting better in the first place? When you're so close to your own bass playing, sometimes you are getting better, but you can't see it. So there's 2 ways that you can approach this. Number 1 is using a practice journal. Number 2 is recording yourself. There are a number of benefits to using a practice journal. There was this management guru called Peter Drucker who said, what gets measured gets managed. And it can apply to anything in life. You know, if you want to lose weight, track how many calories that you need and how many calories you're consuming. If you consume fewer calories, you'll be in a calorie deficit. Over time, you'll lose weight. It's a bit like this with bass playing. If you track the things that you need to learn to get better and constantly improve on those things, you're getting a bit more serious about it and you're taking a bit more control. So how can you measure your own progress? Well, you remember that goals list that hopefully you've written. You can refer to that and see if you've actually learned any of those things. So arpeggios, do you know all your dominant 7 arpeggios, different roots? Do you know your major scale? If you're into modes, do you know all your major scale modes? You can write this down in your journal. What are you working on? What went well today? What needs a bit more work? The next practice session, don't do that thing. Let's just say you have got an E Lydian mode. You're just learning an E Lydian. I like doing E Lydian, by the way, because you can do this drone. And you're working on your ear as well. Let's say you come back to the next practice session and you're like, oh, E Lydian, no, I can't remember what that was. Well, you need to still work on it. But if you can play it really well, then perhaps move on to something else. Always aim to get 1% better each time, incrementally better. And what you're going to be practicing is going to be different for everyone. It's going to be different for you, and it's going to change over time. The other thing is to record yourself playing. It will be horrible. The first time you do that, you'll hear, you know, buzzers, you'll hear strings ringing out, you'll hear, this happened in my case, you'll hear woeful timing discrepancies, especially rushing. That was the thing for me. But really recording myself was a wake-up call. I was like, okay, I need to be much, much better at that. My technique needs to be better. My knowledge of the notes needs to be better. All these things are tripping me up. Fantastic way of improving. So try that. Try recording yourself. I want to wind this video down by just talking about a few ways of approaching this in terms of your mindset. Really try your best not to compare yourself to anyone else. It doesn't matter. This is about you and your own journey. If you can get a bit better than you were yesterday, you've won, okay? Even if you're still not as good as that person that you see on Instagram every day, it doesn't matter. Like, we're bombarded by all this information and videos and evidence of everyone else being incredible. Who cares? It's about you. It's about no one else but you. Just give yourself a pat on the back if you're doing this. By watching this video, if you've got this far, you're serious. If you get a piece of paper and write some of this stuff down, you're serious about it. Be really pleased with yourself that that's the case. Don't be hard on yourself. The more you learn, the more you'll find the different pieces of the jigsaw puzzle will connect. Your understanding will grow, things will get easier. So just keep going and do not give up. So I hope that's given you at least 1 or 2 ideas in terms of how to structure your own practice routine. It's going to be unique to you. I'll put links to those courses below, but even my music theory course, I reckon that's got years of information in that one course. That can be overwhelming. All of this stuff can be, but not if you have a plan. If you structure your practice and if you're consistent, even 5 to 10 minutes a day, you work at your own level. On my course, it starts easy and it gets more difficult or more sophisticated as you go. But just go at your own level. You start there and you build like layers on top of each other. No matter what you're practicing, it's going to be the same things, all these different elements of bass playing. So if you do have any questions based on this, please do leave a comment below. Otherwise, thanks very much for watching and I'll see you on the next video.